I heard them during sound check, and I feel like my heart woke up, so I'm feeling very good and very thankful to President Hartzell. Good afternoon, Buenos Aires. I'm Dr. Stella Flores, Professor of Higher Education and Public Policy in the College of Education and Chair of the UT Faculty Council. It is my honor to welcome you to this year's State of the University Address and to introduce President Jay Hartzell. The Faculty Council represents the nearly 3,700 tenure-track, tenured, and professional track faculty members here at UT Austin. We appreciate the importance of shared governance here at UT with the administration, an essential mechanism that allows faculty, staff, and students to participate in the decision-making processes of this institution. President Hartzell and I actually share a few things in common. We both hold degrees from UT Austin. We both taught at NYU, New York University. We both have a love of economics and higher education. And we both eventually found our way back home to UT. Now, previous chairs have highlighted President Hartzell's many accomplishments, moving swiftly from faculty member to president of the best public university in the nation. But today I want to focus on three qualities that I appreciate most. Jay Hartzell, the professor, Jay Hartzell, the advocate for student talent, regardless of income, and Jay Hartzell, the Economic Innovation President. Jay, the professor. President Hartzell is, at his core, an educator. When I first joined the Faculty Council, we discovered our shared interest in economics and higher education. He generously offered to speak to my graduate class about the complex financial workings of a university and the budgetary issues that affect students most. My students still talk about what they learned from his lecture and the clarity in which he connected such complex topics with finance, law, and policy. Jay, the advocate for student talent. In January, UT Austin became the first university in Texas to raise $1 billion for students through a philanthropic campaign. President Hartzell has emphasized that achieving the vision of becoming the world's highest impact public research university depends on attracting the best students and ensuring they have the resources they need to succeed. As he rightly says, it starts with making our world-class university affordable and accessible. This kind of commitment to supporting students, regardless of income, is vital for UT to remain a leader in higher education. Jay, the Economic Innovation President. President Hartzell has a forward-thinking vision for economic and technological development. I've listened closely to his ideas, even when he thinks I'm not listening, I am, about how UT can position itself as a prime leader for innovation. His focus on preparing our university to lead in areas like AI and microchip development is crucial in today's rapidly evolving world. I've spent this past summer immersing myself in these technologies and exploring how they can be integrated into classroom teaching, social science research, and the educational labor market. UT is poised to shape the future in truly transformative ways across all disciplines with this vision. Now, I know we're very eager to hear what President Hartzell has to share with us today, and with that, it is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce the President of the University of Texas at Austin, Dr. Jay Hartzell.
Very kind, thank you. Thanks so much, Stella. And I had a mix of emotions. I was tearing up a bit as she was, I think, too kind and flattering. I was also thinking maybe she should just give the whole speech. But I want to say thanks to Stella for her leadership and partnership. And we've already been through a lot together the last year or so. But I'm really, really grateful for her service And it is wonderful for lots of reasons, but also in part because she loves the university, and also because we actually have somebody who studies higher ed. So we'll see how this all goes. But I want to say thanks again to Stella. I also want to say thanks to Carrie Rodriguez, and she is the second songwriter in residence that we've had at the university, and I want to make sure it's clear the reason we started this program was not to open up the State of the University address. We think we play a role in the arts, we think we have a role in inspiring our students, and we think our students have stories to tell. And a lot of those stories can be told through song and through music, so I'm really happy that Carrie took on this position for the year. I also want to say thanks to everybody who made today happen. There's a bunch of people who put all this together, a lot of really talented people. Also want to say thanks to everybody who did this to Hogg Auditorium. I'm not sure how many have not been in Hogg since it reopened. It's a beautiful space. And I'm going to talk about the tower in a little bit, and just to kind of calibrate, this opened around the same time as the tower. So if you kind of want to think about what we can do with the tower space, look around and think about what we did with this auditorium, and thanks everybody who made that happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where I think we are as a university, where we're heading, and some opportunities we face, and then try to come up with and talk about a few things I think we can really focus on as a campus in order to really take advantage of the opportunity that we have as a university. So the first part I would say is that we really have a special moment here. It is a unique and special time in the history of our university, and it's illustrious history. There are a lot of reasons why. I think the wind is at our back. Part of that is the growth of Texas, interest in Austin, the way that world problems are shaping up relative to the strengths of this university. And I'm going to talk a lot today about why I think a great, broad, deep research university is uniquely positioned to make a contribution and impact in today's environment. If you look at the way the school year kicked off, I think it's consistent with that. So we set out 8,000 seats for our freshman class in Gonda, Texas, the big kickoff event for the school year, and it was standing room only. That part of that is because we had the second biggest ever freshman class, I think 9,210 students. Miguel, does that sound right? So incredible class that has come here, the biggest student body we've had in our history. I keep saying 52 or 53,000, it's almost 54,000. So just incredible students who are here. Another part is that we've opened up brand new graduate student housing. I'll come back to housing in a little bit, but this is a big deal. We haven't opened a graduate student housing project in about 40 years. So the fact that we now have 750 graduate students living in kind of the east of I-35 neighborhood and able to access campus in an easier way, I think is a big deal. It is also an exciting start to the year. You may have heard that one of our sports team is currently ranked #1 in the country. I'm not sure at the end of the day, people ask these questions of a president, say, how do you want to be remembered? I hate the question. Depending on how this goes, it may just be the president who hired Sark. So we'll just see how that goes. But back to this moment that we're in. I want to talk a little bit more about why I think this is a special time and why I think we have some special things we can do with it. So I want to talk a little bit about three big themes. How, number one, I think it's a chance for us to think more deeply about what we mean by student success. We have made great strides in thinking about our students and positioning them to graduate on time and go out and into the world, but there's more we can do with that idea, this idea of how do we really position our students for success. The second one is something I mentioned earlier. In the world that we face today and the problems we face today, it's a special time for broad and deep universities. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how I think we can do even more to harness the breadth and depth of this great research university. And the third big idea I'm going to talk about today is just, I think it's a time we should just relentlessly focus on getting elite talent to come here. Supporting elite talent that is already here, getting more elite talent to come. And I'll give you some examples as I walk through that. But first, just some more proof points on the moment that we're in. So as I mentioned, demand to be in our student body is an all-time high. And we crested about 73,000 applications to be part of the freshman class. This is 2 years in a row of 10% year-over-year growth. And the student body seems to get, it feels like, stronger and stronger every year. Part of that is because we have a great reputation. It's a great academic place. And, I don't love rankings, but I like it when they go up. And ours have been trending up. By one metric in the U.S. News & World Report, we have over 42 programs in the graduate programs that are ranked in the top 10. And you think again back to this kind of idea of breadth and depth, that speaks volumes, 42 programs in the top 10 in the country. The student demand is so high, you may have noticed in the last couple of days that we actually had to change the automatic admission cutoff. We have to go from the top 6% down to the top 5%. That's just a function of how many students want to come here versus the space that we have. And the statistic I thought was pretty interesting. If you look over the last 5 years, the growth in the Texas high school population was 6.3%. So if we're going to have a fixed percentage of that, that's going to grow at 6.3%. The growth in the automatic admission applications to us was 11.3%. So it's not just that Texas is growing, which it is, but more and more of those very top students want to be here. And that's a great problem to face. It's a problem that we now are wrestling with, but it's part of, again, the story of our student body and the interest that they take in wanting to be here. As I mentioned before, we've had this big focus on what happens when they're here, and we have a lot to celebrate there. And one of the big celebrations is students are graduating more and more on time with less debt. And they were going off and, as we say, changing the world. We've made huge strides in graduation rates. The graduation rate, four-year graduation rate for the most recent cohort was 74.5%. And I'm going to talk about it in a little bit, but that's come up from more like in the 50s. So more great proof points there. And great students want to be here, and so now we have to think more and more about what do we do to attract more and more of them, and what do we do to support them and enable them to succeed here. So what I want to spend time now is talking about that student experience and thinking about the student's journey from admission to alum and how we can support them along the way. And as I mentioned, about a decade ago, President Powers laid out, kind of threw down the gauntlet and said, we're going to do better with graduation rates. Now, why are graduation rates so important? It's some reasons are more obvious and some are more subtle. The more obvious reasons is, students come here to get a degree, they should finish, right? And so we want them to finish. If they finish on time, they're likely to spend less money, lose less income by being in school, and also, they're also likely to have less debt when they come out. So that's part of it. But then the part that's a little more subtle is it also makes more room. So partly why we have the second biggest freshman class ever is we have more throughput. Students are coming through the university and succeeding, so we have an ability to take more and serve more of our students. And it's been successful. Lots of great work. Many people in this room contributed to it. A lot of really great outcomes there as we move that number from 50% to over 70%. So you think about part of what that shows is what we can do when we try. With relentless focus and a drive to serve our students, we can make a big difference in the outcomes for our students. So I want to talk a little bit more about a broader view. That effort has been so successful, we have started to equate student success with graduation rates. So if you look out and talk to somebody and say, we have a student success program, really what is behind the curtain of that label is the idea of a graduation rate, graduation success program, which is noble and important. But I think we can talk more about a broader view of what we mean by student success. So that's part of where I want to focus today. And this, in part, comes from an idea. So we have this summer reading program, and for the faculty in the room, if you haven't done it, you should do it. It's a way to commit to read one book a summer. Which has been helpful to me. And so the book that I read this summer was suggested by a friend and supporter named Ken DeAngelis, and it's this book called Range by Epstein. And it's making an argument for the role of generalists. And I thought it was interesting. And part of what Epstein is trying to argue is that society in some ways has been overly fixated on this idea that you leave the womb and you know what you want to do when you grow up and you go do it. And that's the path to success. But instead, there are many of us who found their ways later. My guess is among those in the crowd, many of you didn't expect to be doing exactly what you're doing now back when you were 17 or 18 applying to college, right? So there's something there, I think, for us as a university, thinking about what is our role to not only produce specialists, which we're going to do, everybody with a PhD in some way is a specialist, but how can we also think about producing generalists? How can we expose students to different ideas from the breadth of this great university and enable them to solve hard problems? So part of what Epstein talks about is this difference between two famous athletes. On the one hand is Tiger Woods, on the other hand is Roger Federer, right? We probably should use Scotty Scheffler and Peyton Stearns, okay? Tiger came out and was sort of bred to be a professional golfer. On the other hand, Federer played a lot of sports and later found his passion was tennis. And so the point is both can be world-class, the very best of what they do. It doesn't always have to be the person who moves first. So what's that mean for us as a university? It means we have a way to help expose our students to all the greatness in this university and help them find what they love. This is an idea I'll come back to in a little bit, but we can help train students not only to have a deep area of expertise, but also to be generalists and be able to think across broad domains. Now, Epstein argues that's important in part because in a world where there's more uncertainty, students, people, we need to be more adaptable. The role of a generalist has some value when the world is rapidly changing. There's not pattern recognition. There are things that we have not seen before. So how do we cope with things we have not encountered before? It's an ability to have broad skills, critical thinking, communication, those things we teach here every day. So how can we do more of that and help our students embrace and experience some of that? So what can we do for our students? One, encourage them to get out of their silos. Encourage them to experience the rest of campus. Think about taking a minor, take a fun class, take something a little bit outside your comfort zone. Take advantage of what it means to be at a world-class, broad university. I also think it's important for us to just relentlessly focus on what skills are we teaching, how are we teaching them not only just what the topics are, but how to learn, how to think, how to communicate. And those are things here that many of our faculty do at such a great level. So that's one part. Next part is not only do we have that from an academic side, we also have to worry about things that I would characterize as our foundational needs. What are the basic things that we must provide to our students for them to be successful? And one of these is what Professor Flores mentioned, which is affordability and accessibility. And we've had a lot of great strides there. One of the things that I'm especially proud of, our tuition is low anyway. It's about $12,000 a year. And many who were down here in the front remember when it was $300. I get it. All right, but $12,000 is a great deal. But if you look at the net price that our students pay today, so take the average of the tuition minus the average of all the aid we provide, that net price is down to $4,152, which I think is incredible. 4 years ago, when I first looked at the data, that number was $5,815. So we've driven it down by almost 29% in 4 years, and that's not controlling for inflation or cost of living or anything, it's just actual dollars of net cost down. Now, part of that story is this incredible program that we've done with the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation called Dell UT for Me. And that program is really pushing on how do we best support students with the greatest financial need and position them to go out and succeed. This last cycle, we had 1,300 students from that program walk the stage as the first cohort. Yeah, thank you. So whoever had the pool for the first dean to clap, it was Rich Reddick. So that'll pay off on that square. So that's important work. We're making more and more students able to come here and afford it and come out with less debt and be successful. The second part is housing, and we all know that being proximate to our campus matters. And students who live closer to campus have better experiences. They're more likely to get engaged, more likely to belong to things, more likely to join, more likely to spend their time with each other, have a better sense of community, get better grades, graduate, and the like. So we have to continue to focus on that. And that's more and more challenging in a city like Austin where it's growing and prices have been rising. So two great efforts there, just to mention a couple. One I mentioned earlier, which is the opening of our graduate student housing project. I'm really proud of that, the fact that we've done that. Phase 2 is being designed and worked on as well. We're not done there. The second one, if you've driven up north of Dean Keaton, up by Kinsolving off of Whitus, you'll notice a big construction fence there. So we're taking down about 200 beds to build 1,000 beds. So by the time that's done, we'll be 800 beds more in our supply of dorms, which is, again, increasingly important as we find more ways to get students closer. So housing has been there. Safety. We've continued to focus on how do we provide a safe environment. This is, we've heard our board say it over and over again, this is the top priority for the university, and the board has been extremely supportive of this. The big announcement that came out in the summer, right before the students came back, we started this program called the West Campus Ambassadors, where we have people in West Campus where something like 20 to 25,000 of our students live now. And the people are there to help. They're there to keep it cleaner, keep it safer, provide an escort, pick up a piece of trash, clean up graffiti, and be a friendly face and a presence in the neighborhood. And everything I've heard from parents, from students, from people in the community, it's made a difference. So what we did this summer is announce that we're going to extend it indefinitely, and we're going to deepen the level of service all the way down to Lamar. So I want to say thanks to Jim Davis and his team for making this all happen. It's a big win. It's an important win for campus and the community and the environment. The last thing I'll mention in terms of foundational needs, it's important to talk about health and wellness. And I don't probably need to educate this crowd about concerns about our students' health, and especially mental health. And there are things there that we've done that I'm quite proud of. One is we launched something called Timely Care, which is a 24/7 virtual service to be able to provide mental health counseling. But it can't just be only the counseling and the care in that way. We have to also talk about the culture. How do we have a place where people can talk about mental health, can be open to it, to have those conversations? So another example along those lines is we launched something called Longhorn Listens. And it's a way to prepare students to have conversations and intervene if needed around acute mental health challenges. So it's a way for people to be more comfortable in those spaces and be able to have the conversations they should have about mental health. More to come there. I know we're not done, but it's how do we set the right cultural tone around health and wellness, and how do we continue to find ways to support our students? So call that foundational needs. I want to spend just a minute on the physical campus. And you can think about the physical environment as foundational, that we have to have buildings and the like. I would say it's a little more than that too, that the physical spaces we inhabit, much like I would say this auditorium today, can be inspirational. And there's nothing more inspirational to me on our campus than our tower as a physical building. So if you think about, and I've thought about it more probably because I have this job now, but you go back to who decided to build that tower back in, I think, 1931. And you think about, in the Great Depression, building the tallest building in Austin, Texas, taller than the Capitol, built to be a library that could house more books than we owned, right? So you're going to build a symbol of a great university at a time when arguably we weren't quite great yet. And I think of the guts and the audacity and the brashness that Texans had then. We probably still have it, right? But we had that same moment, but different here today. And so it's time for us to fix the tower. So you're going to see in the next month or two, scaffolding go up, a scrim go up outside of it. And so, as we've been telling the students, get your pictures now. But the tower is important. It's a symbol. And when we've gone out and talked to students about what it means to them, it really makes your heart melt. And they talk about things like, I now know I've made it. Right? Wherever you grew up, you come here, you're now at a world-class research university, and the tower is a symbol of that achievement. It's also a symbol of what's possible. So more to come on the tower, but I'm really excited about the project, and I want to say thanks to everybody who's been involved in it, and we're still open to new ideas and to checks. So it's not too late. So the next part I want to talk about, and this is probably where I spend just a little bit more time, is if you think about this journey of students from admitted to academic, the foundational needs, and then we get them to graduate, how do we really support them on what happens next? And this is an area where I think parts of the campus have done very well, but a place where I think we as a collective campus just need to do more. So I'm going to characterize this as career success, if you will. How do we help students find their passion, find out what they really want to do, and help position them for at least that first position after UT, whether that's graduate school, nonprofit, for-profit, but how do we do our very best to position them that way? And as I mentioned before, with graduation rates, we've shown what's possible. We've shown that if we collectively marshal our energy and our talents, we can make a big difference. And I think now is the time for us to have that same focus and relentless push to do the same things for what happens after UT. So I think we as a campus can do this together. We can help students figure out what they really want to be, what they really want to do. As I mentioned this book Range. There's a chapter in that book about what economists call match quality, where the question is, how good of a fit is this activity or this thing with me? And those answers are obviously different for all of us. So part of what we can help support when we think about our students is, how do we put them in positions to learn what they love? How do we help them, put them in a way where they're going to figure out, and maybe it's not a specific industry or job, but it's a kind of thing, a role, a sort of a way to use their skills or their talents that they really find joy in. So people are calling this in part life design. It's not just helping find an immediate career outcome, but how do they design their lives? And that's something I want to see us focus on. So much in the same way that we had a rallying cry around graduation rates, the rallying cry that our leadership team wants to put forward now around careers is, we think by 5 years from now, we can have 90% of our students, and they know they have that first planned outcome. Maybe it's a job, maybe it's graduate school, maybe it's starting a company. I'll come back to that in a minute. But I think by 5 years from now, we can sit down and look back and say, we've moved from here to here, and now 90% of our students or more know what they're going to do when they leave UT. And I think that's something we can all do together. I'll come back to that one more time in a minute. So we've got to make big investments to get there, but it's also important to have a metric and a goal. That will give us that framework to go forward. One other way where students are finding success is through entrepreneurial activities. And we're seeing more and more students come to UT already having had this mindset of, being an entrepreneur. And whether they want to end up working in a company or starting their own thing, whatever that looks like, more and more of our students who are coming our way come in with that mindset. It's just one statistic, about a quarter of this year's freshman class came in having already started a company, an organization, or a nonprofit, right? Just like us in high school, right? And so that fits us. We're known for that. Think about Austin, think about Texas. This is a place where we can make things happen. So students are coming into us with that kind of energy. And we've got incredible programs that are already helping tap into that. They're spread out across the campus. One of the great things about a broad, diverse, decentralized campus is innovation happens. But one of the hard things about that is students often struggle with how to find it all. So how can we as a campus collect this together, tell our story better, and also help students find their way? So we're creating a new position, and Melly Price has been willing to take this on through great bribery and arm twisting. And I don't know what we're going to call it yet. There's probably a title somewhere. But what I've asked Melly to do is really help just coordinate what's here. What are the gaps we have? What are the things we can fill in? But also, how can we make this more accessible for our students as they want to find their way through all of our campus? That's on the student front. We've also been making great progress with a lot of great help on the faculty front. And there, we've been really working to have a bit of a, again, sort of a life design question. How can we help faculty who really have something inside that maybe has a bit of an entrepreneurial spark to it? How can we help them explore that, experience that, and see if it's something that they want to run with? So we've got a unit called Discovery Impact that's been working on that to great effect. And Mark Arnold is now the leader of that unit. And I'll come back to an example of the kind of work that they're doing, but that's going to be a continued effort that we as a campus can make. How do we position our faculty who want to explore this possibility of how do they take these things that they've invented, discovered, or thought about and get them out into the world to make an impact? So I mentioned the entrepreneurship and the students. Another part that we continue to focus on is obviously we're a research university. And we've called out these three big areas where we're going to continue to focus. And the first of these is health and well-being. Now, Del Med is a large part of that story, and Del Med is going extremely well. I think it's important for us to make sure we continue to tell that story. So as one metric, they've got, I think, 465 residents and fellows currently in place. And on an annual basis, those residents and fellows will provide about 900,000 hours of clinical care. So you think about the kind of care that's available in Austin from those kinds of talented people who are coming here for Del Med, and it just wasn't here before. That's one part. The second part, on sort of more of a micro level, there's a story of a patient who was from Belton, Texas, and she was suffering from Marfan syndrome. And wherever Dean Lucanetti, if I get this wrong, just don't tell me. But this is something that has a weakening of parts of the heart in her case, and she had previous operations and was looking really for something that was going to be a life-saving operation given the condition she was in. And in the old Austin, it wasn't possible. And given what she was facing, she was trying to figure out, could she make it to Dallas or Houston to have this kind of an operation? Was there somebody there to do it? And then, lo and behold, we have a professor here at Del Med named George Anatakis, and George specializes in that kind of work. So she had found at Del Med in Austin at UT one of the world's experts in that kind of work. He saved her life. Right? That's pretty cool. Another part of the story that I think is, again, sort of a layer down is part of why George came to UT from the University of Florida was because of a doctor named Chuck Frazier. So Chuck Frazier, star talent, attracts George Anatakis, star talent. George Anatakis helps save somebody's life. So that's the kind of work that we can do. That's the kind of work we are doing. And it's the kind of work I want to see us continue to focus on and do more of. Another one on the research domain coming out of the Broad University. So a group of scientists from many parts of campus came together, and they found an antibody that can work against the class of viruses that includes COVID. So they found a generalized antibody that can go out and work against SARS-CoV-2. I think I got that right. And these faculties, I'll make sure I get it right. So molecular science, chemical engineering, biomedical engineering, and chemistry. That's breadth again, right? Bringing faculty together from those departments to come together to solve a hard problem. So it's that kind of work, again, that a broad, deep, great university can do. Now, Dean Bonacaze did admit that his social media on his bet with the Michigan dean got more coverage than that did. But that's partly on us, right? We've got to make sure that society understands the importance of that work beyond just the other kinds of things we do. The last one on health and wellness I want to mention, I mentioned before the work that Mark Arnold is doing, and one of the things that we're doing on Discovery to Impact is taking investments in early stage companies from our faculty. And this is meant to provide a little bit of an accelerant. How can we help them, propel them, and get their idea farther along? We hope someday some of them will pay off, but it's really that's second order. It really is about showing that we care, showing that we're going to invest alongside other investors to help propel these ideas forward. And the most recent one that the UT Seed Fund invested in is called Bright Skies Bio by one of our faculty named Ken Shu. And Bright Skies Bio is out there trying to figure out ways to intervene with the process by which cancer attacks our cells through the creation of proteins and through RNA. So again, example of professor, great idea, try to get it out to market. How can our university do more to support that kind of activity? So that's on the health and life science front. The other big area, second big area that you've probably heard us talk about, and Stella mentioned it in her opening remarks, has been around technology and society. And just a couple of examples there. We had a really good 8 days this summer. First big announcement was we secured $457 million to continue to advance our supercomputer and maintain its edge. We have the world's fastest academic supercomputer, a bunch of really talented people who run it and make it accessible to so many around the world. It's called TAC, and that investment is a huge investment to make sure it stays at the cutting edge. And then about 8 days later, we learned that we had secured $840 million from DARPA, which they were awarding a competition across several states for activities around chips in the defense sector. So UT and Austin won that competition. It's going to lead to incredible activity here. It's not just us, it's a consortium. Many companies and universities will get to take part in it. And it's led by incredible Professor S.V. Srinivasan, who has just labored night and day since we started really pushing on this idea. And you can see what happens when really talented people pull together a great team and then we advance it forward. And we're not done, right? So there's more federal money we think to be had. We're Texans, we want to win. But early signs of incredible success. Great return on investment from the state as well. And those two awards came right in the middle of what we had talked about as our year of AI. And that idea was a way to just coalesce what's happening here, maybe tilt it a little bit more towards certain areas, but help tell the story of the strengths and the breadth of the university. So that year of AI, I think, has done a great job of really putting a spotlight on certain things that we're doing so well. I want to say thanks to David Vandenbout and Melissa Taylor and everybody who's been involved in that. There's too many names to do them all justice. But a couple of things just to highlight that have happened along the way. One is a year ago we launched really the first degree of its kind, a Master's of Science degree in AI. And that program from inception, now we're in year 2 and has 1,300 people in the program, which I think is pretty incredible. We've got more stories. Even this morning, something came out that I will not go too far into because I will probably screw it up, but we announced a new institute around cosmic AI. This is a partnership with the Simons Foundation and NSF to build this new institute, and it's designed to think about the most fundamental questions. Why are we here? How did we get here? What are the origins of the universe? And do it from an AI perspective. So those are just some examples of what's happened in the past year. The year's not done. You're going to see more and more in the months to come, but I think it's been very successful. You'll also see, as you think about those examples, the combination of breadth and talent. We're bringing people together from different perspectives. That last institute that I mentioned, the Cosmic AI, is going to be spearheaded by the Odin Institute, but 8 different departments are contributing faculty to it. So you've got 8 departments plus the Odin Institute, all trying to figure out why we're here, right? So the third area, which I want to talk about, is energy and the environment. And I probably, in Texas, don't have to motivate too much why this is a crucial set of topics for us to be worried about. The very basic human condition relies on energy. And if we think about how humans want to flourish and thrive around the world, it's not just what happens in the US, but globally, we need more energy. And we want to have more energy accessible for more at a cheaper price point and in a clean way. So what are the things that our university can do to help spur that on? I would argue there's no university better positioned to address that set of problems than UT. I think of us as the energy university. And again, I'm not sure the rest of the world always gets that, so I think we can do more to tell that story. How can we as a university combine the strengths we have around energy and the environment and come forward with something that people understand and see what is sort of one level back and understand the strengths of this great place? I don't think anybody can match the breadth of our expertise. I don't think anybody can match what we have to offer in this place. I also think we have a pragmatic approach to the problem. We realize that it's going to take multiple sources of energy to address the world's needs. We're not going to be dogmatic or religious about it. We're going to go out and try to solve the set of problems the world's facing. And that's an opportunity that we face, and we can do it a little bit differently than others can. So for those reasons, in 2025, the plan is for that to be our year of energy. And I don't know exactly what that means yet, so I'm glad there's no Q&A portion for today. But the idea is to use the same opportunity to coalesce the university in a common direction, much like we've done for AI, and see what we can do to address some of the world's energy challenges and help propel the work forward. So one example that's already underway that will predate this year. Last year we launched a lab called the Energy Emissions Modeling and Data Lab. This is a partnership between the Department of Energy and several private sector partners. And it was a $50 million joint partnership. And to give you a sense of what they're working on, the problem they're trying to address and study is that of lost methane. So if you think about industrial processes and other things that happen, it generates methane. And just to give a sense of magnitude, the size of that problem, if you could eliminate it, is in the same magnitude as 2 billion cars and trucks and their emissions on the roads, gas-powered cars and trucks on the road. It is a big problem. So again, those are the kinds of things we should be tackling. Interdisciplinary, hard, requiring great breadth of talent and great depth of talent. So our research stands out, but we also are doing more for students there. So one of the more recent startups that's going very well, just to give you an example, is the Center for Global Sustainability. This is a joint venture between the Macomb School and the Moody College, where we're really trying to focus on how do we train students to think about the business side of sustainability. Not just the science and technical side, but how can you make a business case? Because it's that business case one's going to need, I think, to make it sustainable. And the second part is how do we talk about it? How do we communicate about it? How do we think about interacting with each other around questions around sustainability and the environment? So a student-facing example that I wanted to highlight. So that's on the research front. I want to talk a little bit about where we're going in terms of the strategic plan. I think since we've launched it, we've learned a lot of great things. We've learned that when we focus on making changes, we can drive things forward. And I've seen what we've been able to accomplish in certain places. But we also realized that I think the plan and its structure could be streamlined. And so the evolution of the plan is what you're going to see. I'm not going to walk through all 10 boxes, so if you're trying to think about leaving, don't worry. But I wanted to show you the way we're envisioning now the plan going forward as a more simplified tool for how we think about where we're trying to head. So these are the 10 priorities. And the one I want to focus on just for a few more minutes before I wrap up is the top left box. And the one I want to focus on is the goal of attracting more elite talent. And that, I think, needs to be a continued priority. So our new provost, who still has not quit, Rachel Mercy, is here. Thanks for taking the job on, Rachel. And part of what Rachel and the deans and all of us are going to be working on is how do we think about across the entire academic enterprise attracting more elite faculty and students. And then I would say across the entire university, let's include elite staff. So how do we think about more elite students, faculty, and staff across the breadth of the university? I've highlighted some in the names I've mentioned already. So I mentioned the story of Chuck Frazier attracting George Arnatakis. You can think about Karen Wilcox and what she's done with the Odin Institute. You can go kind of down the list of the stories we told. And it's not all those kind of, sort of STEM-heavy things. So one example that was wonderful out of liberal arts in the spring was Jacqueline Jones and the Pulitzer Prize. So there are lots of great stories of just elite, world-class excellence at the university. It's also not just research, not just creative work. It's also teaching. So Jay Banner won one of the biggest teaching prizes in the world, which is I'll make sure I get the name right. Thank you. Prize, and Robert Foster Cherry Award. Yeah, thank you. And so congratulations to Jay. Again, elite talent from a faculty, teaching, and research perspective. I think there's more work that we have to do there. So take as just one little microcosm of it, the National Academy of Science. We've got 18 members of the National Academy of Science, which we're really proud of. We have a ways to go to catch Berkeley and Michigan. So if we're going to get to where we think we need to go, we have to have a relentless focus on developing our talent and attracting and retaining the top talent and finding more ways to do that at scale. So many of those touch points, you think about our faculty, but it's also staff that enable all those things to happen. And so you think about what we do to curate and attract and develop our staff. That's a top priority. We also have to think about how do we get more fantastic elite staff to come here as well. And those are, some of those examples I had on the screen earlier, but getting more and more of outstanding staff like that are going to enable the things to happen that we want to have happen. So elite faculty and elite staff attract more elite students. We're on the way. I mentioned the demand in terms of the freshman class. That freshman class that just arrived had more than 800 valedictorians and salutatorians. Right, so we're getting our share already, but we want to do even more. We want to find more ways to have elite students really want to be here. One way we do this is to build more world-class programs, and a couple that I want to highlight that I think are really good case studies for what's possible. The first of those is a program we just announced a couple weeks ago around robotics. And this is something that builds on great faculty strength across a variety of departments. It's interdisciplinary. It builds on a great research culture, so the Texas Robotics has had huge wins and successes from a research standpoint, but now it opens up the opportunities of those same kinds of programs and faculty and engagement and research to our students. So it's going to be done at an honors level, so think about this as kind of a curated cohort of really special students. And the broad thesis is that we think a disproportionate number of tomorrow's entrepreneurs, tinkerers, innovators, people at the edge of where things are heading are probably today in high school robotics programs. So what can we do to get them to come to UT and pick us over Carnegie Mellon, Caltech, or you name it? So this program is designed to do that. You can earn one of 5 different majors across campus and wrap it around a set of experiences. And to our knowledge, we're the only university to do this where freshmen can take advantage of this kind of an opportunity. So an example that characterizes this is a student named Gabriel Moore. Gabriel chose us over MIT, Harvard, and Cornell, which we all think is obvious. But out there in the rest of the world, it may not be viewed that way. Now, part of why he did it is because he wanted to have experiences in a research lab. He wanted to be at a place where undergraduates could experience research in that way. And then in sort of this full circle moment, Gabriel helped us design the new robotics program. So here we have attracting a STAR student to come here, and they're helping us figure out ways to attract more STAR students. So that's the kind of program I mean when we should find ways to attract more elite students to be here. A second one I want to highlight is from our newest school, the School of Civic Leadership, and they are now out in the market this year in this admission cycle with another new degree program. It's a civics honors program. And this is another interdisciplinary broad program designed to help students wrestle with some very fundamental questions. What's our country's experience been like? How do we think about very basic questions of liberty, of freedom, of markets? What are the fundamental principles from a philosophical standpoint, from a political standpoint, that we should all be wrestling with as we go forward as a society? And so we're really excited to see the first class come in that program next fall. But we've already had some proof points. So one student who already picked us is a woman named Debbie Chu, chose UT over Vanderbilt, again, obvious. But part of why she did it was she was exposed to the Civitas Institute, which was a precursor to the new school, and she was around the programs and saw it as something that built a community that she wanted to be part of. So again, the point is we can do things in this broad interdisciplinary way that create the kind of experiences, opportunities that students want to be a part of. So with those are 2 examples of our newest 2 kind of honors level programs. We've got amazing existing programs as well. So I won't name them all because I'll offend somebody, I'll forget somebody. But you think about just a couple of examples, Plan 2 or Turing Scholars. These are incredible. And and part of how I've sort of sold it to students is if you want to go to Williams College but want to be part of a great city and a great university, not be stuck in remote destinations, come do Plan 2 at UT. Right? Or if you want to be in a world-class technical thing like Caltech, but want to have a fuller college experience, we've got Turing Scholars. So we can take these kinds of opportunities and pull them together and find a way to tell our story more forcefully and try to help more elite students want to be part of it. We can also combine and create experiences for those students across programs. What happens if we get the great computer scientists with the great liberal arts students and see what happens at you can imagine the social hour, right? Dean Reddick and his team are working on this. We're not sure what we're going to call it yet, but call it Texas Honors for now. But there are ways we think we can collectively work to that end as well. So one example that just as another sort of proof point is a student, Jenna Steele. So Jenna comes from California and again sort of turned down a who's list of schools, chose us over Penn, over UCLA and Dartmouth because she was exposed to the Canfield Business Honors Program. And it was this combination of world-class academics, but also a sense of community and a sense of a really special group of students you want to be a part of. So more of that is what I think we have a chance to do. So we've got to figure out more ways to get elite talent. That's going to take resources. Many in the room have been very helpful to that end. I just want to have one shout out as an example. So last month I was on the road in Santa Fe and we went out and talked about the 40-acre Scholars Program. So that's our version of the full ride that would compete with the Moorhead or the Jefferson Scholars at Chapel Hill and UVA. So think about that as our very top level scholarship. And the goal from the Texas Exes who runs that for us is to double the number. And if we can double the number of those scholarships, we'll be on a competitive basis with the very top schools like Chapel Hill and Virginia and be able to compete for those students. So just a sense of what we're trying to do to bring elite students, faculty, and staff together. So let me wrap up. Let me just try to reiterate. We are at a special moment in time. It's a great time to be a Longhorn. When I say that on social media, people say it's always a great time. I get it, it's always a great time. This is an even better than great time. So part of what I want you to get the sense of is it is a great time, but we got to go. It's our chance to move the university forward, to propel it forward, to find new ways to serve more students, new ways to create more knowledge, new ways to get that knowledge out in the world. And three things that I've articulated that hopefully you can take away as ways to take advantage of this moment. One is think really broadly about how we support our students. And we've done great work there. We have now changed the way we move students through this great university. Now I think it's time for us to emphasize not only that, but what happens after UT. And how can we work together to help position our students to find what they want to do, find their passion, and also find the kinds of opportunities, whether it's graduate school or jobs, that launch that career into that kind of a meaningful and fulfilling existence that we think they deserve. Second is, let's find more and more ways to use the breadth of the university. What are the things we can do to take advantage of the fact that we've got such strengths spread out across this great campus? How can we bring them together in novel ways, not only for our students, for new programs, new classes, new courses of study, but also how do we do it for research? How do we find ways to bring really talented people together to solve really challenging problems? And I think we have huge advantages there. The third, as I mentioned, is this focus on extremely talented people. And I've tried to stay away from too many sports analogies, but think about these as 5 stars if you follow recruiting. We need more 5 stars. Why more 5 stars? They're good. And 5 stars want to be around other 5 stars. And 4s want to be around 5s. So if we can do all we can to find more ways to get more extremely talented people to be part of our community, more great things are going to happen. So with that, I want to say thanks. I'm honored to be in this role. I'm honored to be able to do this work with you, honored to be your colleague. And I truly believe that together we're on the path to be the world's highest impact public research university. So with that, thanks again and hook 'em.